we go. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julianne Peterson. I am your host tonight for Zoom at 8. I welcome everybody. We have some new faces, but we have a lot of people that return every week. My name again is Julianne Peterson. I'm with Old Capital Lending, and as you may know, or maybe you don't, we are a premier provider for all kinds of debt, primarily in the multifamily space, but we also go into storage, mobile home parks, and all the rest of those assets. But let's focus today on multifamily. So I'm really excited, and I know I start all these Zoom calls saying I am excited, but I am excited because one of my favorite people is in the house today to talk to us. Kelly Stinson is in the house, better known as the Potty Princess. And she has brought her man of the hour, her sidekick, Anselmo Torres the third. Yeah. I know I said this earlier. I've been trying to come up with a good name, Potty Princess. What's another good name for someone who's working in toilets? You know what? My first thought was Turd Ferguson, but I had to back off on that. I don't know if anybody's got any ideas, but we can work on that. Anyway, so before we get started and really turn our attention to our guests tonight, I want to welcome all the new people. So let me see. We've got quite a few. Let's see. I know Matt McMacken. Wave your hand. This is Matt McMacken. Wave. There's Matt. Matt is located in New York. Matt, can you tell us, welcome to Zoom at 8. We're here every week. Tell me what you're working on, what we can help you with.
Right now I'm relatively new into real estate investing. I have about 5 or 6 single family rentals, and I'm working on a couple flips right now, actually. And, I'm really just trying to take it to the next level and learn as much as I can and kind of see what the next level looks like. And I think this might be it.
This is great. So a little bit of a secret. I know Matt's aunt. We do business here in San Diego, and she said she has a nephew who wants to get in the business. So everybody look at Matt, take down, Matt, if you could put in the chat box your contact information so everybody can get a hold of Matt and encourage him along the way. So that's great. Welcome, Matt. Also, yes, Amy Fulbright, hello. I got to speak with you last week. I think it was last week. It was. It hasn't been this week, right? Yeah. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're located and what you're working on.
Sure. So my name is Amy Fulbright. I am looking to become a syndicator. I have not syndicated any deals, and really I've just been reading about syndications in general. So I'm also extremely new to everything real estate investing, and especially multifamily syndications. But I am hoping to syndicate with properties in North Carolina and probably starting in the Raleigh-Durham area. I lived there for a couple of years, and that's actually where I got my start in learning about real estate investing. Now I live in Austin, Texas, where everything is so red hot that nothing is affordable, or nothing works long term. So that's me. And Julie, back to you.
Well, welcome, Amy, to our group. And as you all know, we're a little bit different in the Michael Blanc group, and this is kind of where we started, is in the Michael Blanc Slack group, is that we don't necessarily have the ecosystem that some of the other programs have, where you can buy in as an LP and you fund the deal. Michael does an amazing job educating people, and then you have a deal, but you might not be able to bring it to close. And so my interest in having this Zoom and making a place for everybody to talk about a deal that they're having or that they're in and help, and hopefully we can help fund it. We've been really successful on helping with 2 projects. Actually, let me double check. Steve and Justin, where are we at with that deal?
We are set to close. We are closing this week. So we raised and funded well ahead of time, which was very, very, very nice. And we've been having lots of conversations about how we're going to scale up. So we're really, really excited. It's been a wonderful first experience. And I think it's going to lead to many more bigger and more exciting acquisitions. So thank you for always promoting this, Julie. We really appreciate that. I think that's what's been missing from kind of the Michael Blanc community, is someone that says we need to invest in each other's deals. And I think you were a huge factor in promoting that. So thank you so much for doing that. And we're really, really excited about this.
Thank you, Julie. We appreciate it. This is a huge help. And there's people on this call that answered the call. So we thank you too. And we want to, I know I specifically want to return the favor. So I'm looking for deals, and I'm a big believer in keeping this thing going with us all investing in each other's deals. So thank you. Yes.
And of course, always looking to have Old Capital help with the debt. So now I do want to recommend that you reach out to other people. Again, it doesn't have to be because they have a deal. Reach out to Matt, reach out to Amy, reach out to Shaka, reach out to Dave Verga. Listen, these people may not have a deal now, but they may have a deal down the road, and you have to have a pre-existing relationship with them. So I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan, because Jonathan does have a deal. He and I spoke about it. He can't really give too many details, but Jonathan, if you could tell us a little bit about it. Based on our SEC guidelines, we have to be very careful of having a relationship before, but I think it would be interesting to know. We do all know each other. So Jonathan, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you've got going on.
Okay. So I have under contract a 72-unit deal in Oklahoma, and I'm doing due diligence probably this Friday with one of my friends. Here will go up there, and so I'm very excited to have another building under contract.
So Jonathan, can you tell us how we can get a hold of you in case, like, if we wanted to maybe think about investing in your deal? How would we get a hold of you?
Just email me. Just info@greystonecapgroup.com. That's all.
Great, Jonathan. Can you also put that into the chat room for us?
Oh, yeah, sure.
That would be great. Is there anyone else in the house that is working on a deal that may need some extra capital? Anybody? All right. All right. Let me do one other. I want to talk to Shirley and Conan. How are you? I'm so glad to see you guys. Please introduce yourself to all of us.
All right, we were on mute. So, hi everyone. Sharon and I live in Denver, Colorado, and a few months ago we were Californian. We live in Silicon Valley for many number of years, and we are member of Brett Sumrock's investment group in Dallas. So we have not syndicated a deal, but we have been a KP for one of the projects. How many units was that? Sort of 400 units in Dallas area.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Where are you looking, Conan and Shirley?
We want to plug into multifamily domain, mobile home park, or, commercial real estate. Yeah, we don't want to pretend we know everything, so we are learning, building networks with, perhaps one day we'll team up with one of you over there.
Good.
Yeah, and then we
I
can
like
start.
that.
But our background was in single family. We've been on single family for
15 years.
15 years. We have a portfolio of single families across many states.
Excellent. Well, welcome you guys. I hope you guys see the value of this networking and that you'll come visit us on a regular basis. Lastly, another rock star is among us. Ray, who came to speak with us a couple weeks ago, it's almost 3 weeks ago, on a deal that he closed, and he spoke all about the deal, and that was really exciting. But those of you who know Ray, he is up to something pretty exciting. Ray, can you tell us about what you're working on?
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate that. Today I actually started the campaign with my marketing team on a new book, my first book on multifamily passive investing. And what I didn't put out, but I think it's important for this group, is that I actually collaborated with Michael Blanc on this book, and he actually wrote the foreword for it. We've been kind of going back and forth. It started a half ago, maybe a little bit less. And you know, we got close, and then COVID hit, and I had to go back and do some edits to it. So it's kind of been in the works, but happy to get that out. And it's kind of talking about how I started and how I talk about investing. You know, I started in a single family like a lot of people did, and then you figure out real quick that it just takes too long, and it's you know, you don't get a lot of juice for that rock you squeeze, and so you make the leap. And so how do you do that? And that's kind of where the book kind of comes in.
Excellent. How can we find that book?
So I actually put a link on in the brag wall. So it should be up there on the brag wall. And you can actually find it on Amazon right now. It's 99 cents. I'm trying to get as many people to get at it, but you know, before we raise the price. But it's Bluff, B-L-U-F, the bottom line up front about passively investing in multifamily properties.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Before we go into an introduction to our potty princess and our potty prince, I don't know, seems kind of weird. Is there anybody else who needs to make an announcement, what they're working on, or needs a question answered? All right. Well, potty princess is in the house, and so is her friend, Anselmo. Her man of the hour. No, that doesn't sound good at all. I wanna introduce Kelly. I've known Kelly for over a year. We met at I think it was our old Capitol conference.
Yep.
So she is known as the potty princess, and wherever you go, whatever Zoom call you see her, she's known as the potty princess, and she is the national sales manager for SAS. She's passionate about water and energy conservation. Wow, that's amazing. I never knew that there could be such a thing. She's nicknamed, caught traction 2 years ago through her continued commitment for bringing awareness, education, and support across the country to multifamily property owners relative to the financial and environmental impact of old toilets and their property. So in 2019, she saved over $2 million for property owners on their water and sewer bills. That is amazing. And that's over, she could fill up 303 Olympic swimming pools. So that is a lot of water. Thank you for that savings. Now, Anselmo, the potty prince, he's also the national account manager. He created a software program, which is pretty cool, Leak Aware, that helps the multifamily properties monitor their water consumption. And so you're going to see what that is. It's pretty cool. It detects leaks and the consumption. He has also walked over 300 properties across 30,000 units. That's a lot of people's junk to be looking at. And you perform audits and collect data. He's also passionate about water conservation and sustainability and saving our most precious resource, one leak at a time. So you guys, I'm excited to have you here. We are a fun bunch for sure. I want to put it over to you, Kelly and Anselmo, and you've got time. If there are questions from anybody, if you could put them in the chat box. And I'm going to turn it over to you. Kelly, thank you so much. Anselmo, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Julie, for having us. And that was quite the introduction. So thank you. I see a lot of names that are familiar. So I think some of you are joining in on what Yana Weiss's 10-day CRE days or 10 days CRE challenge, right? So I think we're getting ready to enter into day 3 tomorrow. So keep posting it. I promise it's going to get easier. We have had a big focus on engaging our LinkedIn community through really our shift in how we're all engaging face to face, right? I didn't think I'd ever use my camera so much on my laptop. So, but what I want to share with you guys tonight, and I'm going to keep it really simple. So Anselmo and I, we kind of have a joke that runs because Anselmo and I have been partnered together now for, gosh, just about 3 years. And
feels longer.
It does feel longer, right? And I probably gave you a lot more gray hair. But we both partnered up in water conservation. We both have a very similar background on where our passions derive from and what we're trying to accomplish. And one of the things that we found out as we entered into the world of multifamily as well as other channels of investing is that everybody hears about sustainability, right? And that's kind of like the buzzword. But why is sustainability and why is, a focus on water conservation going to be something that you should pay attention to when you are investing in multifamily? And this is for those that are syndicating deals. And this is also for those that are passively investing. And just as a side note, I jumped into the passive investing bubble here into the family through COVID. It was time for me to take some massive action and just jump in. And so I'm super excited to be a part of this and kind of experience the other side of it. But I'm going to share with you guys a few, pieces of insight today that I think will help bridge that gap and allow you guys to leave this evening with some nuggets of information that you're going to be able to take to the table, whether you're in the process of due diligence, whether you are maybe at the point of just penciling a deal, seeing if it cash flows on the front side, or maybe you already have a property right now and you're having to change your entire business plan because COVID changed it. And now you've got to find ways to improve cash flow when, increasing rent right now is more difficult than it has been historically, right? And then also some of those tidbits for our passive investors on what you should be looking for, right, with some of your deal syndicators, and see if they're considering water conservation or if they've even already evaluated it and said, nope, it's already done. Because this is the hidden gem that so many don't know. And it's funny because somebody had shared with me this morning when I was on a call, they were like, stop telling people the secret because now their offers aren't as competitive as, some of the other syndicators out there because they're all coming in now. So I'm going to share with you guys a little bit, but Anselmo and I have been, on a whirlwind of, different types of networking events like this. And then also on a few different podcasts out there. And we're just kind of like partners in crime here. So I want to keep this open. Ask questions, okay? I never knew that I was going to end up being the phone a friend for everything toilet trivia. So seriously, I'm like your lifeline. And Anselmo, will share this, and I experience the same thing. we get pictures received. Individuals text us pictures all the time when they're looking at OMs or when they're on property, and they're like, hey, what do you think about this toilet? And then, we'll reply back with, yep, that's a great candidate right there. So we're going to walk you through that, kind of help bring that correlation together. And if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to, interject or drop it into the chat, and we'll be sure to get back to it here. Okay. So
can you tell us what SAS stands for?
Yes, that is a great question. So SAS is an acronym for Sustainability Solutions. And that's a lot to get out. So for me, I just like to abbreviate. So about 3 years ago, I moved that to SAS. So you may see us referred to as Sustainability Solutions or SAS. And just so you guys know a little bit on the background of our organization, we are a nationwide service provider. We focus on water conservation through the installation of ultra high efficiency plumbing fixtures. But we need to help you on the front side to determine if it makes sense for you to consider water conservation when you're underwriting a deal or when you're looking to improve cash flow on your property. And that's how we give back to the community here, is that we'll run preliminary analysis, we'll engage, we'll answer as many questions and phone calls as you want. We want to be your phone a friend for everything water conservation when it comes to that water and sewer expense line that you guys see. We see a lot also, guys, about a lot of pro formas out there. A lot of owners are looking to transition to RUBS, right? And that's a phenomenal model, but you can't do that in every state. So what do? Or in certain states, you can only rub back, a certain percentage, or just a flat fee. So you have questions around that, we can help walk you through that to see what makes sense, because we have to get to the root of the water consumption on the property first. Is the property using the right amount of water based upon the current occupancy and also where you're trying to get occupancy to? Okay. Cool.
Very good. We're ready.
All right, so let's dig in. Let's see if I can share my screen properly here. So I'm in my home office, and of course, both of my kids have started virtual school today. So my husband late last night was running through the attic, running hardwired lines, so all of the family could be hardwired on Zoom at the same time. Yeah, so this is definitely interesting times for all of us. So let me hit, I think I hit share. And let me start from the beginning here. We only have like 40 slides, so I mean, we should be done by 10.
Yeah, that should be fine. We're committed to you.
Everybody get their drinks ready. Yeah.
All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep, you're good.
All right, so perfect. So we've already kind of given the introduction on SAS. We are nationwide. I am the national sales manager for SAS, and Selma is our national account manager. And we also have some other colleagues on our team that can help answer questions. So just know we have plenty of capacity to take all your questions and phone calls along the way.
So, do you have a list of states that we cannot do RUBS?
So we are actually in the process, and that's a great question. We are in the process of building out that reference document, and I'm hoping to have that ready and confirmed within the next couple of weeks. So as soon as we get that out, I will be more than happy to share that with you, Julie. And then if you want to go ahead and...
Yep, I'll push it out to everybody. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's see which button. Oh yeah, I've got to work on the right keyboard here. That would help. Hang tight. So yeah, so we just have one page. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
So this is the piece that we were talking about earlier about water conservation. We focus on the interior. Okay. So we focus around toilets, your shower heads, as well as your faucet aerators. And so we have the, you know, the silly tagline of stop flushing money down the toilet. We can't, and we've got some example pictures to share with you guys. You might get, you know, a chuckle later on here, but I can't even express to you how many great videos that Anselmo and I see of all of our investors out there that are doing these fantastic like property renovations and interior upgrades, and they're putting in this beautiful flooring and, you know, great quartz countertops and great tile in the bathroom. And they have this giant 5-gallon per flush toilet that's still sitting there. And I'm just thinking that is incredible. I mean, I get that it's not broken, but it sure is a water waster, and you're literally flushing money down the toilet. So how we correlate this for you guys so you can see is, let me move my little stuff over here. So this is one of my favorite visuals, and I use this all the time because for me, this is where it makes sense. And I hope that this pieces it together for you guys tonight. So if you have, you know, a 200 bathroom property, and let's just say the average to install all of those bathrooms, all in, the material, the labor, everything, is $55,000. And in year one, you're going to reduce the water and sewer $50,000. And that's average, depending on where you are in the country, because the water sewer rates vary, and we'll talk about that. If you have a 6.5 cap rate on your property, by making that investment and adjusting, enhancing those interior plumbing fixtures, that's an asset value boost of almost $770,000. And what I love about a lot of our multifamily investors and syndicators is that they're looking to hold properties for 3 to 5 years. So where are you going to get an asset value increase of $770,000, you know, this quickly on something as simple as pulling old inefficient toilets out, right? And then if you held on to that property for the total of 5 years and you didn't do anything, that just cost your investors $250,000 that you could have put out into distributions. And as a passive investor, these are the things that they are relying on deal sponsors and syndicators to deliver at what the pro forma is to meet or exceed it. And this is kind of the sprinkles on the cake that's going to get you there. So I love this graphic. Does this make sense for you all? Yeah? Okay, cool. All right.
Is there any, before you go any further, Kelly, is there anybody in the Zoom call right now that has a question on this before she goes any further? I know we all work on underwriting, and we also work on, you know, spreadsheets, and sometimes we can't visualize this unless we're looking at a spreadsheet. Is there anybody that needs to have a more in-depth explanation of this?
I'm just curious,
Okay.
is there a size where it starts to make sense as far as unit count?
Good question.
That is a great question. So we ask that you go ahead and engage with us on any size. Ask the questions. That's part of our way of giving back in the community. To run a full turnkey project on, you know, let's say a 15 or 20 unit property, it may not make sense to have, you know, a full service firm like SAS, but you would still want to take that in-house because you're probably already doing some interior renovations, and we can help get you that product or make recommendations if your property will support ultra high efficiency plumbing fixtures. We're very conservative in our analysis, but then we're also looking deeper to make sure that what we're seeking to recommend for your property is actually going to work, because the last thing you want is to have residents calling and complaining that the water pressure is too low, or they're removing the shower heads that you installed because they don't like the water flow. We ask a lot of underlying questions to ensure that it will support.
Thank
and
you.
then,
Question.
yeah, and then for those that might be new here, because I see this question in the chat group all the time, how did you get that asset value increase? So if you just take the year one savings, which is $50,000, and you take 50,000 and you divide it by the cap rate, and I just used a average cap rate of 6.5%. So if you just take the 50,000 and you divide it by 0.065, that's where you're getting to the asset value boost of 769,230. And this is real. This is happening.
That's
So
exactly what I wanted you to explain, because I think that, if you don't visualize it, that's exactly how you got to that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a follow-up question.
Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I'm noticing, for example, on the slide, it mentions, toilet with an 0.8 of a gallon per flush toilet. Do you follow up with your customers after they've installed everything to make sure, for example, that their, maintenance, how frequently are they having to plunge toilets has it skyrocketed?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll touch on this as well. There are so many different types of, like, you heard the terminology low flow toilets.
Right.
We exclusively install one brand, and that is Niagara. And the reason why we install theirs is because they actually re-engineered the toilet. So you don't get into that whole double flushing or, having to have it plunged because of clogs. Now, we're always going to have those fun residents that have kids that might flush, toy trucks down the toilet. That's just normal. That's multifamily properties. That's housing in general. My kids are guilty of that. But, at the end of the day, these are working very well. And also, we'll qualify the property too, to make sure that it'll support. Because, like in the Cleveland market, you're dealing with a lot of old buildings that were built in the very early 1900s, like 1910, 1920. So typically in those applications, we're going to verify if it's still cast iron plumbing, if they're having to jet the lines on a regular basis. And maybe it makes sense for us to place a couple samples out there first before you guys, go into, a reduction in the water consumption. So,
Gotcha.
but great.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Okay.
When do we engage you, Kelly? When do we engage SAS for an analysis? Is it before you get into the LOI? Is it at PSA? Is it at close? What's your recommendation on that?
All of them. If you're looking at a property, if whether it's on market or off market, and you're considering to pencil it and submit an offer, reach out to us at that stage, because that's really going to help you with submitting a competitive offer and determining if on the front side how much additional cash flow you can create on that property. And again, we make it very conservative, and we will back you into the numbers. And we have some clients we work with that, even though our estimates are very conservative, they will still only take on that, because we won't be on site at that point. We're just making some assumptions. They'll only take maybe 60% of our total recommendation to put that into their calculator. If you're already further down the line at, you know, LOI or PSA, that's okay. And then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about the water conservation. I wonder if we can add that in. Yes, reach out to us then. So,
Great, thank you.
Is that right, Anselmo?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
So this slide here, we're going to have Anselmo kind of walk through this because, you know, he's the master that's walked over 30,000 units. I'm still trying to get to that. It might be a little while, but this is, I think this is a great visual for everybody on this call to understand why we should really be focused on this interior water use.
Yes, thank you. So over the course of probably the last 3-4 years, really, is when I walked over 300 properties, looking at 30,000 different units. And one of the reasons why I did that was because a great friend of mine who is a property owner is typically only paying about $8,000 a month for his water bill, and the next month it was $18,000. He doesn't like sending the city $10,000 extra dollars. He wants to keep that money. So like, how do we figure out a way to monitor our consumption? How do we figure out, you know, a way so that I can keep more money in my pocket? And that's really why I started walking 30,000 units. And that's why this graph really sticks out to me, because if you look at this graph, you see toilet, shower, faucets. Between those three fixtures alone, that's 63% of the water consumption that's taking place on your multifamily properties. That's a big deal, because when I walk those 30,000 units, I can guarantee you that the majority of the leaks and inefficiencies that I saw were coming from these three fixtures. So this really resonates with me, and especially everything that I saw walking those units. There's a 13% of that consumption is attributed to leaks. So right off the top, your water bill, the consumption that's taking place on your property, 13% of that is attributed to some type of leak, whether it's underground, whether it's pool, whether it's, you know, in your boilers, you know, in between the walls, wherever. 6% of this 13% can be attributed to leaking toilets, the inefficient toilets that, you know, on your 1985 property, when it was built, it still has that same 1985 toilet that's inefficient, that will leak over time. So this is just a great visual representation of what type of water consumption is taking place on your multifamily properties.
And we're going to show you guys a few pictures of things to look for. So I love this because I call it kind of the cheat sheet, because if you guys are looking at an OM, or you guys are evaluating, you know, a property website and taking a virtual tour, now you're going to be educated of, all right, you know, those are really old fixtures, those are kind of mid-range. So really something to think about is, if the property was built before 1995, then automatically you should add this to your checklist of something to validate if it's already been completed, so you understand. Okay, so you're not leaving any money on the table. Or maybe you want to leave some meat on the bone, partial meat on the bone for the next investor. I don't know, but something certainly to be looking at here. Okay, so like the toilets that were built before 1985, those are going to be 3.5 gallon per flush toilets. And then you get to about 1986 or so, that's when about the 1.6 gallon toilets started to come out and really hit the market around 1993. And then it was in the early 2000s that we started to see the 1.28s hit the market. But here's what's interesting about these toilets. They didn't change the technology in the toilets. They just designed the tanks smaller and maybe adjusted something in the bowl, and it's just using a reduced amount of water. But you're still asking the toilet to push the same amount of waste as that 3.5 gallon toilet that was originally in there. So that's something to think about. And that's one of the reasons why Anselmo and I are so passionate to support Niagara, because they re-engineered the toilet where it's only using 0.8 gallons per flush, but it's using 0.8 gallons per flush because that's what's rinsing the bowl after the waste has been essentially siphoned through the P-trap. So in the back of the trackway of the toilet, in between the flushes, there is an air pocket that's created. And that air pocket, once it's released, just acts as the siphon to basically suction the waste out, and then that water rinses the bowl and pushes the waste down the line. And this is also really important, especially in aging properties. You need to make sure that that waste is getting pushed 50 feet or more down the line, because otherwise it could build up over time, and then you end up having to jet the lines, or goodness, dig up and having to replace the sewer lines. And you don't want to do that. I'm seeing a lot of that going on right now on a lot of properties. So the great thing about the Niagara toilets is that they do have the furthest line carry of any toilet that's on the market today. And they don't have any flappers. So when we're talking about this point here of 6% of the leaks, that are attributed to interior water usage, at 6% is attributed to those leaky toilets. And a lot of those leaky toilets are due to those flappers that start to curl and erode over time. And we call those the silent leaks. And the silent leaks, a lot of residents don't know what to listen for, so they don't know to report it. Or they're just not going to report it because they don't want you in their unit because they're afraid they're going to get blamed for it. But that's just standard wear and tear. So with the Niagara toilets not having a flapper in them, you have reduced work orders, and you also have a protection around your property where you're protecting the water consumption. Okay. So if we just take, for example, here, and these numbers are based upon EPA averages through the WaterSense website. So the average multifamily property in the US is running about a 2.76 gallon per flush toilet. So if you take a 2.76 average, because you might have a mix of some of those 3.5 gallon per flush toilets, and maybe some units were upgraded to a 1.6, that's where you're blending, and you take it down to a 0.8 gallon per flush, that's a 72% reduction in the actual consumption on the property. So we have seen most recently, we usually, average a 20 to 40% reduction on water sewer expenses, but we're now getting reports and analytics coming back of excess of 50% reduction on water sewer because they had so many leaky toilets. Or the tub diverters were leaking, which means you can't turn off the shower. It's just like that little stream coming down. You don't realize that that adds up over time, but it does. And this is the same thing about showers, right? So the average shower head is running about 2.5 gallons per minute. So if you place in the right WaterSense certified shower head at a 1.25 gallon per minute, you're able to see that 50% reduction. And this goes back to the old adage that not every toilet and not every shower head is created equal. Just because this one on the shelf at Home Depot says 1.25 and this, other one says 1.25, I assure you they're not going to perform the same. So it's important to do the research, and we've tested, so many of them out there, and we can share with you our personal feedback and recommendations. But one thing that we also noticed during COVID, and this is going to be really important for you guys as you're evaluating, T12s, T6s, is that the water consumption on multifamily properties has increased on average 3 to 5 times because of that period of time of stay-at-home orders. So be very, very mindful of that when you guys are looking at the T12. You're going to see that spike, and don't just automatically go, oh, well, that spike was because of a leak and they fixed it. No, it's because everybody was home. And I think we're already starting to see that shift where people are going to be at home more often. We know there's a lot of kids that are starting school virtually or are going to be staying virtual. So if the EPA says that we each flush the toilet 3 to 5 times per day, we used to leave the house and spread those flushes. Well, now they're flushing them all at home. So if you're on an all bills paid property, that's money that you're paying for. So we've got to help you, identify ways to reduce those expenses to boost the cash flow.
Kelly and Steve asked a great question of kind of what the average consumption should be for a unit. So just to address that question, the EPA says it should be about 66 gallons per day per unit, right? Yep. So that kind of gives you a really a baseline of what it should be.
Yep. Yeah, that's really important. So good point. Great question. Okay, so this is something that you guys are going to be really interested in here is where are these water rates increasing? Let me page up here. My computer's giving me a bit of a delay. So talking about, the water and sewer rates, they're varying all across the country. And by the way, Julie, you have this presentation, so feel free to send this out to the group because with these states and areas that we have listed, those are the areas that have some of the highest water and sewer rates in the country. And it just so happens to coincide with some of the very hot investor markets right now, okay? So, and someone's gonna share with us here about why these water and sewer rates are increasing and why we should be paying attention to this.
Yeah, so that first point I think is key, right? So water and sewer bills, which are rising faster than inflation, increased for an 8th consecutive year in a study of the 50 largest metropolitan regions. I can confidently say it's probably going to be a 9th consecutive year as we go into 2021. I'm sure you watch the news, you see, this other pothole that just got exposed. We're seeing this aging infrastructure across the U.S. that hasn't been replaced, whether that's funding or just there's, money is being spent elsewhere. So we have this aging infrastructure, but we're stressing it out more and more with more consumption, more residents being built, everything. Mm-hmm. So that's adding to the cost of your water and sewer rates. The other thing is water you can push water wherever, right? The sewer infrastructure is much more expensive to build because, like a lot of times with my jokes, there's only one way that sewer can go, and that's down, right? It can't go up. It can only go down. So you have to build the infrastructure. And that's where it gets really expensive, especially in some markets where it's hilly, lots of terrain. And that just adds to that water and sewer rate. And there's some markets where you'll see the water rate. Let's just use $3 as an example. $3 isn't bad. But then you look at the sewer rate, and the sewer rate is 3 times, 4 times as much. So now you're looking at $9 to $12, per 1,000 gallons when the water rate is only $3 per 1,000 gallons. Combined, that adds up really quickly. So just because the water rate might be low, don't forget about the sewer rate as well. We say be water aware in these following cities and states: Georgia. So the Atlanta Metroplex has one of the highest water and sewer rates across the country, anywhere from like 22 to 25 gallons. Or I'm sorry, anywhere from $22 combined for that water and sewer rate. Oklahoma, Tulsa specifically has a really high water and sewer rate. We do a lot of work over there. It seems to be a hot tertiary market right now. The Tennessee, Nashville area, Ohio, again, another area that has high sewer rates. They are building an infrastructure right now because the sewer used to be going into Lake Erie. So they are figuring out ways to improve that sewer infrastructure, and obviously the rates are going up. Florida, the Tampa and Fort Myers area specifically, and then Texas as in general, Kentucky, California. Again, engage us. We like to dig in and kind of find out what's going on with the water and sewer rates. What you're going to see now too is a lot of sewer rates and water and sewer rates that were approved for increase are going to be going into effect like September, October, November, as well as new water and sewer rates getting increased, the rates getting approval for increases going into 2021. So we're starting to see it. Again, it's been happening for 8 consecutive years, so I don't see it stopping.
No, absolutely. And I hear from a lot of investors that when they are penciling a property, they'll just automatically put in like a flat, rate increase of 3%. It doesn't take a whole lot of time for you to either reach out to us and we can verify for you what the water sewer rate is and if there's an increase in, the upcoming quarter next year. Because, and the reason why I bring this up, you could also go out to the local utility provider and look yourself. It's just, a click away. The reason why this is important, guys, is because as I've been going over the last couple of months and looking at some of this, I'm actually seeing printed approvals of 5 to 7% increase. So if you just put in a flat 3%, you're already in trouble, especially if you have a lot of leaks and inefficient fixtures. So I think that kind of leads us into a really great segue here. Some of the things, that are available on the market, there's some super cool technology, and we want to share with you guys what's available, okay? Because there are a lot of different tools. We are more than happy to take anything offline for you. But during our time of being in COVID, right, where we were on stay at home and we weren't on planes or hanging out, at networking events, one of the strategies that we've been trying to work to add into our service offering is how do we help our multifamily owners with monitoring their water consumption in real time that works, that's consistent, and gets you to minute by minute, and also that's affordable, because there's some really sophisticated technology out there, but unless you're going to hold the property for 15 or 20 years, you're not going to get an ROI on it. It's not going to make sense for you. And I also noticed too that, there's a big focus in Class C properties. And this is important because a lot of the technology out there has to work off of Wi-Fi. And Class C properties typically don't have a strong Wi-Fi signal, right? So there's some technology out there that we've been testing. We've been testing all sorts of technology, and we're able to accelerate it during, our shelter in place. And the cool thing is we got to test it because we could get on the properties, and we didn't have to go into residents' units when, everybody was scared. So this is what we call the Flow-EO. And the picture of this device over here is a fully submersible waterproof device. So if you have a pit meter, you're outdoors in, you know, different types of seasons and environment, it's going to withstand that. And it literally straps onto the top of your meter head. So you are not dealing with an invasive install. This just sits on the top. And then it will connect to the sensor relay that you would just plug into the office or you know, somewhere within 1,000 feet of this sensor, and it's automatically going to create that connection. And within 2 weeks, it's going to start capturing the actual water behavior patterns for your property. And we calibrate it also. And by calibrating it, that way it ensures that it's measuring at the same consistent flow rate that's coming through. There's magnets inside of this sensor, and those magnets are reading that dial on the top of the sensor. Okay, and this will also work with the majority of those newer meter heads that are a lot of the utility companies are placing out there. So this is important, guys, because if you don't have cash flow right now to address, you know, a full plumbing upgrade, at least shore up the leaks. By shoring up the leaks and understanding how severe they are and what the actual water loss looks like, you have the ability to reduce that water sewer bill anywhere, if, you know, let's say 5 to 15%. We've seen a big variance. We've got these on a property in San Antonio, and we're seeing, what was that, is it 26 gallons a minute?
52.
Oh, well, never mind. It's 52 gallons a minute of water that's being wasted on the property due to leaky flappers and diverters. And I bet you guys are like, how do you know that? Because we haven't even been in the units yet. We're getting ready to go in the units. But by it learning the patterns, the water consumption patterns, by having real-time data at the minute level, when the property goes dormant in the middle of the night, we call this the golden hours of like the 1:30 to 4:30 a.m. Your consumption should start to spike down, you know, below that 5 gallons a minute. You're wanting to see that those pauses in water consumption where you're at 0 gallons or 1 gallon. If you're still seeing a consistent baseline of water usage in the middle of the night, that's an immediate indicator that there is a leak occurring that's tied to that meter. And we can help walk you through that. But this is super cool because it's loaded up to on a platform. It's through cellular technology, so it's very consistent. It's on what they call a LoRa signal. So it's one of the strongest and most secure signals available today. And it's also one of the most cost-effective products out there that will help you control the water, and you don't have to worry about, you know, the water burglar. That's kind of what I call it. Who's stealing your water? You know,
Kelly, and that was a great question kind of asked about, you know, does your property need to be sub-metered to have this on? So to kind of address that, for Class B and C properties, it's not uncommon to see anywhere from 1 to 3 meters feeding, you know, 100 plus units. So this can easily be applied to that specific meter to start tracking what type of consumption is taking place on your property, because, you know, since it is not sub-metered, you still want to be able to track that consumption, because residents are either, you know, it's all bills paid or it's RUBS. So they are not as inclined to report a leak whenever they come across it, because they're not paying for the full brunt of that leak, if that makes sense, right?
What happens if your maintenance manager fills the pool Saturday morning, puts, you know, turns the water on, and then gets a work order for an HVAC unit and completely forgets to turn off the water. And all of a sudden the pool starts overflowing.
Mm.
By having a real-time alert that says, hey, meter number 3 is detecting a 22 gallon per minute leak, then that gives you full control to know that you're protecting the water use on that property.
And as I always say, right, if you can't monitor it, you can't manage it. Right now, what's happening is with a lot of investors, owners specifically, is they get reactive because that water bill comes in 30, 45 days, and they see that increase where it's just ridiculous. So they're in reactive mode. What's going on? Why? There's got to be a leak. So then you're trying to identify the leak. This lets you get ahead of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not Russian roulette every 30, 45 days with your water and sewer bill. You have an idea what's going on. If there is a leak detected, you can get ahead of it.
Yeah. So here's the fun pictures. I mean, what a way to end the evening to look at potties, right? So these are the things that you should be looking for. Okay, if you are evaluating OMs, virtual tours, looking at apartment websites, or just texting Selmo and I pictures that you see out and about, because usually we can just look at something and we can share with you, all right, that's a 1.6 or that's a 3.5. So I'm going to share with you an example here. This type of toilet, this is what I would typically see this like in my, grandmother's or my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law was gifted Niagara Toilets for Mother's Day a couple years ago, so she doesn't have those anymore. So by the way, if I'm gifting Niagara Toilets to my mother-in-law, that's a safe investment. So, but I call this because this is usually where, you have, some of your knickknacks and stuff like that. If you've got a big platform here for extra knickknacks, it's probably a good indication that that's a big water waster. This toilet down here in the lower right-hand corner, I love this because this actually is a very efficient toilet. And they did a great job. They did a great job by upgrading to that toilet, but they didn't factor in the measurements in that bathroom, and they have an oversized vanity. I would have suggested a pedestal sink because there just isn't a whole lot of room there, and then their resident has to reach all the way across the bathroom to get the toilet roll. But this here is a beautiful hotel room that we stayed in for an event. I think it was the end of last year. And I call this flipping the lids, because usually if you flip the lid and you look inside, there's usually a stamp on the back side of the porcelain that will tell you the year it was manufactured, or it will tell you the gallons per flush. And also you can see the water line. And if the water's been seeping down, that's also an indication that that flapper is leaking. So they have done some phenomenal upgrades in this restroom. And that hotel is paying for, the water there. And they're not running 100% guests every night. And they have, 3.5 gallon per flush toilets. So look for things like that. But this right here, and Selmo has seen this in almost every property he has walked. The faucet is turned off on the shower. Look at this stream of water. You can't see it really well, but there's a full stream of water here. That's running 24 hours a day, and that water is really destructive. So not only are you wasting water, but you're wearing the finish on the tub. So that's an additional cost that you have to consider as well. Okay. And then
Kelly, you mentioned, flipping the lids. I think we got somebody that's on the call that's going to be doing a due diligence in Oklahoma, I think on Friday. So not only flip the lids, I also recommend flushing the toilet.
Yep.
Because if it's still flushing and filling up before you've even left that unit, that's another indication that that's a lot of money going down the drain.
Yep.
That you can shore up really quickly.
Yep.
Hey, I got a question for you guys. Is there a minimum size multifamily? I think we kind of went over this, but that needs to make it cost efficient or effective. And are there any tax use discounts available for installing?
So great question. There are some rebates through different cities across the country for particular plumbing upgrades. So we discussed that, and we can help, identify where those are available for you all. As far as property size, for me and, my passion and my purpose of conserving water, I want every single water waster toilet removed. So I can, leave that legacy for our children. But so I suggest all the time, but for a turnkey, typically if it's something that, is less than 70 bathrooms, that's something that you could probably just do the product only through us and then use your interior teams to do it. Our crews will install 50 to 60 toilets per day. So we're on and off a property very quickly. So either way, we'll consult with you. That's our way of giving back. But from a turnkey aspect with SAS, we ask for a minimum of 70 bathrooms.
Cool. Kelly, how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, great question. So here we have our contact information for Anselmo, who, by the way, is like, all over LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, if you haven't seen him, he's all over it. And then, by the way, he also just hit 5,000 connections. So if you guys are looking for additional connections of investors and, partners, you guys need to get connected in his network for sure. He'll help influence that. I'm also out there as well. You can always find me as #ThePottyPrincess. And if you guys would like us to keep you up to date on, new things that are coming about relative to water conservation, EPA standards, California has very specific standards around what type of plumbing fixtures you can put in. New York is the same way. Most investors are not in those markets, but you feel free to text CONSERVE at 31996. And I promise you, we're not going to spam you. It's just getting you guys relevant information. We are working on a very simple web platform for a calculator that you can go to and just put in the number of bathrooms on your property and, play with the different gallons per flush, and it's automatically going to spit out to you a preliminary reduction. So that way, if you're underwriting at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can do that, right? You don't have to wait, for us to get back with you. So we are building that, hopefully have that ready to go here in the next 30 days. And we'd be more than happy to share that.
Okay, everybody take those numbers down, make sure you have them. I am going to put this information in our Slack, so you'll have that as well. Kelly and Anselmo, thank you so much. Great information, amazing. When we talk about building our team and we're talking about our attorneys and our insurance guys, Kelly and Anselmo are part of your team. You really do need to utilize them, put them in your phone so you can keep them informed on what you're doing and utilize them for your savings. So thank you. Really great tips, you guys, tonight. A couple things before we go. I always like to keep this as close to 6 o'clock as possible. So remember, we do this because I want to make sure that everybody's learning something. I don't do this as a self-promotion, but rather to help you understand that there are other people out there that can help you make your job easier as a syndicator or as an investor. So next week, we will have Chelsea Graber. She is an investor as well, but she also does interior design for large spaces. So if you're looking at your new project is going to have exercise rooms, or you're trying to make the office space, improve it, this is the gal who you want to get your questions answered, or get some tips, or start to engage her as well. So tune in next week. Also want to let you know, those of you who are in Los Angeles, on Thursday, we have a pop-up. What is a pop-up? I'm starting to get out there and invite you to come out for lunch. We are doing a pop-up networking in Culver City on Thursday. Check out my Facebook or my LinkedIn for the details. As well, make sure that you come and sign up for the Old Capital Conference that's coming up in October. September 1st, the price goes up. It's typically not a virtual, but hey, we're going to do it anyway. We are going virtual this year. We're putting it together. Really great information. I'm starting to hear about some of the speakers that we have. The lineup is amazing. So take a look at oldcapitalconference.com. $99 for a day of virtual information. It's amazing. And I think that's all I have. Is there anyone in the house that's left that has any announcement that would benefit others?
This is Amy. I put a note in the chat, but I wasn't sure if folks saw it. A lot of municipalities right now are redoing their budgets because of COVID-19. Municipalities, they're not getting the sales tax because nobody's shopping. They're not getting their hotel tax revenue because nobody's doing conferences in person. And so their revenue projections are plummeting now, but expenses really are staying about the same, possibly even going up because they're having to social distance and pay for hand sanitizers and all of that. So it would not surprise me at all if a lot of municipalities decided that one way to recoup some funding was through increasing the water and or sewer rates.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe that's not allowed in all municipalities, but it is something to consider and possibly ask about if you're looking at purchasing a property.
Great information. Thank you. All right, I think that's it for tonight. You guys, is there anyone else wants to make a plug? Anybody? Hutch?
Hi, Hutch.
Heath?
Hey,
Hi,
Kelly.
Heath.
Yeah, appreciate you coming by and doing the interview. It's amazing. Looking forward to that coming out. That was great.
All right, Sean, Heath, got anything else?
Yeah, we don't have anything right now. Got some things we're working on, but nothing right now. We got some things we're working on for our business goals that we want to roll out in this setting in the near future, and we look forward to doing that. So
awesome.
Stay tuned.
Sean, you got anything?
No, I'm just continuing to work on my network. So, and looking for investors as well in the areas that I'm looking. So,
where is that, Sean?
Midwest. I'm in the Midwest. I live in Michigan, and I'm in Columbus. I'm in my backyard too. That's the easiest one to be getting to know in the Grand Rapids area. Michigan's a tough state, but still, it can happen. But now I'm going down to Columbus and Cleveland area as well.
Excellent. Heath, I know you want to say something.
No, I'm good.
All right.
I appreciate
it. Yeah, you betcha. You guys, I thank you for your time. It's very valuable to you, and I thank you for spending it with me. I hope that the information that Kelly and Anselmo brought to you today is worthwhile, and that you learned something, and that you can utilize them as resources. So thank you so much, you guys. Have a great week. I'll see you next Tuesday. Yes.
Hey, Julie, when are you doing the pop-up in San Diego?
It's going to be probably in a couple weeks. Hey, okay. I'm popping up all across the nation. That's all. That's my goal.
So when you're coming to New Jersey?
LA? Like, that's ridiculous. The first pop-up in LA, like, you got all your friends down here. Culver
Come on,
City.
come with me. Come up to LA. All right, you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Have a good
Julie.
one.
Thank
See
you.
you around.
Thanks.